Hey, welcome to Audiomover AM. It is October 2nd, 2025, and Def Leppard is going to receive a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I've got more about that for you here in just a second, but let's first take a look at today's birthdays in rock and roll. Sting was born on October 2nd. In 1951, he's 74 years old. Mike Rutherford from Mike and the Mechanics and Genesis was born in 1950, which makes him 75. And by the way, one of my favorite songs back in the 80s was All I Need Is a Miracle, Mike and the Mechanics. I don't know what it was about that tune. I thought it was so awesome. It was just catchy and the lyrics were cool and I loved the guy's voice. And then like 2 days ago, I'm on Facebook just doing like a doom scroll through some, I don't know, those reels. And I come across a clip from Mike and the Mechanics doing All I Need Is a Miracle. And it was just like on some TV show where they're lip syncing it. And all I can say is I'm glad I didn't see that little video in the 80s because I'm just shallow enough that I probably would have hated the song just from seeing the singer and the way his little dance moves. I'm sorry about that. Like I said, I'm just that shallow. But I loved that song. All I Need Is a Miracle was so great. Anyway, that was Mike and the Mechanics. Michael Rutherford, 75. Don McLean, 1945. Man, oh my gosh. And talk about one of the greatest tunes that was ever recorded, and then spoofed by Weird Al. Anyway, just a great songwriter, great singer. Phil Oakey from Human League. I actually liked some of their tunes. That's why I included it on here because I actually have what's the song? I think they have a song called I'm Only Human, which is a great song. Anyway, I have some of their stuff in the collection. I always liked Human League. I thought they were kind of cool. He's 70. And then Jim Root from Slipknot and Stone Sour, born in 1971. He's 54. Let's take a look at a couple things that happened today. So King Crimson put out Discipline in 1981. And Oasis, What's the Story? Morning Glory. And that's the one that has Wonderwall, which is kind of their, I don't know, Oasis's touchstone song. I remember for a very, very short period of time, long time ago, I started doing guitar lessons, and that's what everybody wanted to learn because it was so popular at the time, and it just had that really cool acoustic guitar part. Okay, anyway, back to Def Leppard, and I'm going to share with you something that's kind of interesting about this. Because I really hadn't paid much attention to rock bands being on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And so here we go. John Bon Jovi and Bruce Resnikoff, president and CEO of Universal Music Enterprises, will be guest speakers at the event. There's Def Leppard right there. And here we go. This is from Billboard, by the way. Def Leppard is set to receive the 2,825th star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame on Thursday, October 9th at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. John Bon Jovi and Bruce Resnikoff, president and CEO of Universal Music Enterprises, will be guest speakers at the event, which will be emceed by Bob Buckman, Sirius XM radio personality. The star is located at 1750 North Vine in front of the historic Capitol Records building. It'll be streamed live. Okay, the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce is proud to welcome Def Leppard to the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Let's see here. Def Leppard has earned a permanent place not only in music history, but now on one of the most famous sidewalks. Def Leppard were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2019 on their first nomination, with Queen's Brian May doing the honors. They have had 2 diamond albums in the U.S., Hysteria, certified at 12 million, and Pyromania at 10 million. And look, I love Pyromania. I didn't love Hysteria so much, but you cannot argue with those sales figures. It's incredible. And let's see here. And then it goes on and says who they are. Def Leppard consists of Joe Elliott, Phil Collen, Rick Savage, Vivian Campbell, and Rick Allen. Now, what got me thinking? So I read this and I thought, well, you know what? I'm curious what other rock bands are on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Because see, I always thought of the Hollywood Walk of Fame, just because I'm kind of an idiot, as being actors and actresses. And then I see this and I go, rock band. Maybe I knew this and I just hadn't thought about it much. So I went back and I did a little bit of research and I thought you would find this interesting. So what I did is I went back and I found basically like the first 10 rock bands that were put on the Walk of Fame and when they were. And here they are. So June 1978, Crosby, Stills, and Nash were put on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. They were the first like rock band to go on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. October 1979, Fleetwood Mac, they were the second. And then here they are in order. December 30th of 1980, the Beach Boys. March 13th, 1987, Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band. July 23rd, 1992, Chicago was put on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. August 23rd, 1993, Duran Duran was put on there. December 25th, 1998, the Beatles. April 2. See, that one, it seems like they would have been the first, right? Doesn't it? It seemed like they would have been the first one. Anyway. April 28th, 1999, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. August 11th, 1999, Kiss was put on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. See, this is what I mean. I probably knew that rock bands are on there because I saw the picture and I thought, yeah, I seem to remember seeing that. But anyway. And then October 18th, 2002, Queen was put on there. So there is a history of rock bands being put on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and those were the first 10 right there. So anyway, I guess congratulations goes out to Def Leppard. They're going to be put on there, and you're going to be able to stream it there on October 9th, which is, it's always cool to see bands that you really liked back in the day. Because I was into Def Leppard, kind of, I don't know if I could say when they were up and coming, because I saw them in concert. I really got into them at the time of Pyromania. High and Dry, though, in my opinion, is their best album. But, seeing some of these bands that you were into back in the early days, kind of getting that broader recognition of how important they were to not just music, but just popular culture. Okay, anyway, so let's move on. So, yesterday's comment of the day, I actually really like this one, and this was at Johnny Megabyte Canada, and he commented actually on a video that I think we put this out yesterday, and it was an article that I found about Kiss Alive, where the guy writing the article actually liked Kiss, which is, I made the video because it's pretty rare. When you're a Kiss fan, you don't often come across critical reviews where they go, yeah, Kiss is awesome. Usually it's like, just how can they, slam on Kiss? So anyway, so then he made this comment, and I actually really liked what he had to say. I wanted to share this with you. So, Kiss might have been the most confident bunch of musicians of all time. Their first 3 albums could have sounded better. Some of the songs dragged, especially Firehouse, but they honed these songs by a live recording and got one of the best sounding live albums with big guitars and drums. A big selection of songs from Alive stayed in their set list until the end. So everybody, there's so many people that talk about this. They brought Eddie Kramer in there, and it is a live album, but is it really live? And a lot of people, kind of like myself, go, I don't really care, because the idea was that they wanted to create this, what it felt like when you were there, and do the best they can to get that in an audio recording. And so they added audience sounds and cleaned up things and beefed up the vocals and the guitar and all that other stuff. And what I thought, though, was interesting about what he said here was that line, a big selection of songs from Alive stayed in their set list until the end. That's pretty fascinating, because you look at those first 3 albums that did not sell well. I mean, you all know that if they hadn't put out the album Alive, and if that hadn't taken off like it did, it's very possible Kiss would have just kind of disappeared. But that album, the Alive album, put them on the map and made them huge. And the interesting thing about it is songs from those first 3 albums that didn't sell well kept being played all the way until the very last concert that Kiss ever made. So it's just kind of a fascinating thing, because you start to realize that even though the production quality wasn't great on those first 3 albums, the songs were awesome. Now, for me personally, going back to those first 3 albums, the first time I listened to them, especially Hotter Than Hell, that the production I thought was just so, I don't know, muddy, weird. But over time, I've gotten to the point where I go, you know what? I actually kind of like it. And it's just, it's kind of one of those things, you just listen to it enough, and after a while you're like, yeah, I kind of dig it. But the point was that some of those tunes, even though they weren't recorded well, Alive brought them to life, and you realize underneath the bad production were some rockin' killer tunes. Okay, now, this next part's kind of interesting too. I gotta say, Alive was influential in me wanting a guitar. And this is a fascinating thing, and I'd love to hear from you about this, because how many of you got into playing, whether it was the guitar or bass or drums or even becoming a singer, because of Kiss? Because there was a whole generation before us that were inspired when they saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. And that's what got them wanting to play music, was seeing the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. And it was like the next generation, it was Kiss. They were inspired by that. And here he is. He's giving an example of this and for me too, you can probably say that about me. I was a professional musician for a while. And what was I doing? When I was a kid, me and my friend, a guy named Tom Leet, we were like, 8 or 9 years old, and we'd grab tennis rackets and we'd be sitting in his basement being Kiss. And then it wasn't more than 3-4 years later, I had an electric guitar. And a couple of years after that, I'm out making money with it because you were inspired by this stuff. So anyway, it's just interesting to hear him say that. Then he goes, that and Rush, All the World's a Stage, an epic double live album too. And this is one other point I wanted to make. Exit Stage Left by Rush is such a monumental live album. It overshadows, I think, sometimes the discussions about Rush and All the World's a Stage, because All the World's a Stage is an amazing live record. But Exit Stage Left, again, made such a mark and was such a mile marker in the history of Rush that this other one gets overlooked a little bit. And so I was glad he brought this up, because that and Rush's All the World's a Stage, an epic double live album too. A few years later, I did get a guitar and tried to learn all these songs, and AC/DC, Highway to Hell, and Back in Black. And again, Gary and I think we did a video about this. We were talking about what is the greatest AC/DC song, or what's the greatest rock song ever. And in my opinion, I don't know how you do anything better than Highway to Hell. It's like the most perfect, epic rock and roll song ever made. And so anyway, you just imagine you get a guitar, you start learning that old Kiss stuff, you start learning the Rush stuff, and then of course, AC/DC. I mean, how many of you that play the guitar learned how to play Back in Black? I remember learning how to play like, I loved that song, and just learning how to play that was so much fun. Anyway, anything AC/DC on guitar is a blast. Anyway, thank you, Johnny Megabyte Canada, for that great comment. Okay, today's Daily Roomie. The wound is the place where the light enters you. Hey, we want to thank Digitech for their continual support of the channel. Go to digitech.com if you're a guitarist. Go to digitech.com and see all the cool gear and cool stuff that they always have there. Want to thank you for following the channel. Like the video, share this with your friends, and please leave your comments below. And with that, have yourself a fantastic day.